build trust first. Because before the messages, before any campaign, before any fancy media plan, or social media plan, or TikTok plan, you do need to build relationships, and you do that by building trust. And if we manage to do that, then we might actually start seeing environmental communication feel more like a relationship and less like a sanctimonious lecture. So I often hear, we have a communication crisis, we have a communication problem. Oh, if only we communicated that better, if only my message was seen by more people. But we tend to look at communication like this magic key that both opens and closes a door at the same time, that is a problem and a solution at the same time. And the reality is that communication is rarely the problem at all. Usually the problem is or starts with the decisions that we make even before communication starts. It's what you do, it's how you behave, it's who benefits, it's who pays. So if it's not communication the problem, then why should communication be seen as the solution? It should not. If we do that, we falsify the situation, and we basically break trust. So the first step in building trust is actually pretty simple. Make decisions worth trusting, then communicate them. Now, another thing that we use or we need in order to develop trust is actually clarity on two things. One is know who you are. Two is know who they are. Who you are is your character, is what you value when no one is looking, when no one is paying attention, is what you are willing to do, is the trade-offs that you are not willing to make. It's basically a synthesis of your aspirations, your boundaries, and your values. And it's important to know who you are from the beginning, because otherwise every message that you would communicate will actually be just a costume change. It will not be authentic. Who they are isn't the public. It's not a monolith. Publics are fragmented, they are fluid, they are dynamic, and depending on the issue, you will see that their position, their stance varies. So, for example, we can have latent publics. We can have latent publics that go into aware publics that become active publics. So what are they? Latent publics are publics who are not aware of an issue, so they do not engage with it. Aware publics are publics aware of the issue, but that decide, for whatever reason, that they will not engage with the issue. We do have this subset of the apathetic public who kind of knows about the issue, but decides they don't care enough to do anything about it. You know them. And we have the active publics who are engaged, who know about the issue and who do something about it. Right? So in communication, it's our job to know where these publics are, at what stage, and to develop strategies that respond to those stages, to know what message works best. And it's often not just about the stages in which they are. It's also about the attitudes that they have, particularly in environmental communication. So if we look at that, we will see 4 broad categories of publics. You will first have the science deniers. The science deniers are people who refuse and reject the causes and the realities of climate change. And they will not be reached by directly challenging their worldviews. So, is there something to do there? There is, fortunately. One thing that you can do is actually try to offer alternative explanations for why a reality or a myth that they think is reality exists. Try to bring a crack in the image that they have. It might be difficult because usually that image is ideological or political, but it's worth trying. The second thing that you can do is try to give them something to do, small but effective and pragmatic in their day-to-day life in order to, let's say, save money or improve safety. The idea here is to try to take the discussion out of the ideological or political realm and to make it day by day, to make it human. Another category is represented by the adaptation skeptics. Basically, they know that there is an issue, but they are not convinced about the urgency of it, about acting now. They have more of a laid-back, let's wait and see attitudes towards climate change. And the solution here, the approach, the strategy, is actually to take environmental risks and to make them personal. Try to link them to the realities, to the day-by-day realities of adaptation skeptics. Link it to their energy bill, link it to their commute, link it to their local river. And then you will see how they understand these grand risks, these grand problems, and you'll see the translation of urgency from global to local, from global to personal. And that's a strategy in their case. Then you have the whitewashers. Not the white walkers, but the whitewashers. Now, they overemphasize the sunshine perspective of sustainability. They focus on innovation. They focus on job creation. They focus on win-win. And they downplay or straight up refuse to acknowledge the rainy perspective. Now, in their case, the solution is not to refuse or reject their perspective. Optimism is good. Sometimes we need a little bit more if we are talking about climate change. But the idea here in the solution is to bring a little bit more balance, to talk both about the benefits and the trade-offs, the costs. And important in this case is to always remember that for them, peer voices and community voices work better and are more credible, more trustworthy than voices coming from outside the community. And then last but not least, you have world saviors, very much aligned with the active publics. They are passionate, they are engaged, and usually are the ones that are more vocal. They can also be impatient. Why aren't solutions working faster, better? And that can actually work to their disadvantage because they can freeze action. In their case, you don't necessarily need to stimulate action. They already do that very well. What you need to do is keep the fire but channel the heat. So frame action in terms of progress and frame progress as collective and cumulative. Make it have more sense for them. Give them a body on that journey. So we have one planet, we have 4 psychologies, very different. And from a communication perspective, if we treat them all the same, we lose all of them, right? So it's important to think how to approach this from a communication perspective. And the reality is that today's communication world is very much obsessed with size. More views, more reach, more hashtags, more hashtags, more hashtags. Did I mention hashtags? So, what is it that we do? The problem is that if we focus only on reach and not enough on relationships, we will see how brittle the situation is, how fragile reach actually is. And we run the risks of actually falling into the trap of thinking that visibility is the indicator for value and the indicator for success. And it's not. Size is not necessarily a good measurement. I will give you a personal example. So last year I started Future PR, which is a competition for communication and public relations students. And what it does is it focuses on what communication professionals can do in order to prevent and fight misinformation, disinformation, malinformation. And it was a success. It went really well. But the evaluation that stuck with me was not numerical. It was a message that I got from one of the students telling me that the process had rekindled the passion for her profession and that it gave her the trust that ethics had a place in it. And that was incredibly valuable. For me, it meant more than 10,000 likes for a post. So the idea here is that you don't need to start big in order to develop trust. You need You need something small that, of course, can be scalable. And what you need to do is build encounters, build spaces where people can meet, can learn how to trust, can develop trustworthy relationships. And that in time, if you show up and show up and show up, you will see that you are actually developing the spaces that we need to rebuild our relationship with the environment. Now, I am fortunate, proud and honored to have built such a space. So over 16 years, I led a community green volunteering project. It happened in the botanical garden of the University of Bucharest, and it was an incredible experience. So what happened is that over 10,000 volunteers came to different activities in this project. They put in over 100,000 hours of volunteer work throughout more than 350 events. And what they did was a lot. They carried, they dug holes, they raked, they planted trees, they learned and they taught others. They created new spaces in the botanical garden. These are just a few of them. So this is grandma's garden, a traditional vegetable garden. And yes, that tomato was delicious. And this is Magnolia Alley, a different space that they created. And this project really taught me a lot about trust. And it taught me that you always need to start from others, not from yourself, from what others need and know they need, not from what you think they need. That was quite a blow to the ego, but successful. I learned that you need to invest and value what brings value actually over time, and that is trust and relationships. So when you build trust over time, that trust brings you the visibility that you need, and it is sustainable, organic visibility, and you don't have to work for every like that you get after that. So I would like to share with you quickly a few practical activities, practical actions that you can take when it comes to environmental communication. You don't need to do them all at once, but they are important pieces in the trust puzzle. So I will begin with listening. And what's important here is to create the spaces in which people can talk and you can listen. And it can be as small as a chat in front of your apartment building, or it can be something big like a town hall. Your choice, just do it. Another aspect is name the trade-offs. So when you interact with people, when you communicate, don't just focus on the benefits of the issue you are advocating for. Name both sides, name the trade-offs, name the costs. That transparency will be an enabler of trust, and you will develop a better relationship. Then, frame for here and now. The reality is that communication is deeply personal. People care more about what is close, what impacts them directly. So frame it that way. Don't talk about the grand issues that people see globally. Talk about how it affects their commute, their harvest, their children's kindergarten playground, whatever makes sense in your context. Then, pre-bunk and debunk. We are going into the false news and misinformation part. The reality is that we do have communication instruments. So, for example, pre-bunking is like a vaccine against falsehood. It's offering people information about potential narratives that might arise before they encounter them. So you are vaccinating them against something that might manipulate them. Debunking is the opposite. If pre-bunking is preemptive, debunking is reactive. So what you are doing here is you are trying to crack down the myth that is associated with misinformation. We need both. They each do something different, but they are both important. Then design small wins and shape agency. Help people start small. Define actions that they can actually do in order not to feel overwhelmed, and then celebrate with them those small victories, because that positive feeling can be transformed into sustainable action in their communities. And then you have a lot of things that you can do from a communication perspective. And you've probably seen some of these, right? It's about channels, choosing the right channels. It's about telling a story. It's about being authentic. But I would also say that it's about laughter sometimes. So try to make people laugh, not because the topics are light, but because humans are. And sometimes we like to laugh even in our darkest times. And laughter can be used like a social glue that opens the door for very difficult conversations that we might need to have. And because I'm talking about this, I would just like to make a small note on tone. In environmental communication, a lot of the times there is this peril, there is this attraction to speak like the planet's lawyer, right? To win the argument. But in communication, and particularly in trust building, it's not about winning an argument. It's about winning a partner. So try to speak in an honest way, in a direct way, not condescending, not full of contempt. And yes, you might be technical sometimes, but you should always be human. Now, I would like to end kind of how I started. In environmental communication, you need to decide very early on who you are and who you want to be, right? You don't need to have the perfect plan, but you do need to decide to start. Start small, be humble enough to do that, listen very hard, and try to develop relationships. Now, why is that important? Because in the end, it's not just about saving the environment. It's about saving our relationship with it and the relationship with each other. And the way that we do that is actually by building trust. And we build trust so that words have a place to land and actions have someone to follow them. Thank you.